Before we start tonight's program, this is a reminder that this episode will address various topics related to addiction and mental health, and a reminder about multiple sclerosis. These may be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor, or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and/or mental health regime. And now this. The week of September 5th through the 11th is National Suicide Prevention Week. People have become increasingly comfortable talking about their mental health, particularly this past year. But the topic of suicide, when it comes up, is still scary for many people to think about. It's time to deepen the conversation. Some are afraid that by asking someone if they're having thoughts of suicide, it will put the idea in their head or push them to take their lives, which research shows is not true. Some are worried that they won't know what to do or how to help if the person tells them, yes, I am thinking about suicide. It's only by learning more about what leads someone to suicide, the ways we can help to prevent it, and what resources are available, and not being afraid to ask when we're worried about someone or for help when we need it ourselves, that we can empower our communities to address this leading cause of death. We all have mental health. It's time we take the next step, ask more deeply about what someone is experiencing, and if we need it, find help together. Together, we can help stop suicide. If you need a resource to talk to by way of crisis, or if you are having suicidal ideation, call 1-800-273-TALK. It's 1-800-273-8255, or you can text the word TALK to 741-741. And then also a quick note about something that has been paramount in my mind and heart over the last 9 months. The National MS Society is a collective of passionate individuals who want to do something about MS now, to move together towards a world free of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and between the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Once again, 1-800-344-4867. Or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. Also, importantly, we are still raising money for the National MS Society through a Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/a venture to a cure. Once again, rebrand.ly/a venture to a cure. This effort will last through the end of the month. This is the page that was created in conjunction with the virtual MS Walk on May 1st. Thank you for those who have donated money to this amazing organization. It touches me and over the 1 million people who have multiple sclerosis in so many ways, and I appreciate all of you. And on that, let's begin. You meet the most amazing people in recovery. Tonight, we profile someone who knows a thing or two about recovery and has proven how instrumental and incredible recovery truly is. Sean Leary is an amazing person. Not only does he talk about his story in the recovery circles, but he's a singer and a stand-up comic as well. It's an honor and pleasure to have him on the show tonight because this is The Venture Forward. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to the Venture Forward. I am John Venturini, a recovering addict of overeating, obesity, compulsive gambling, and alcoholism. And it's an honor and pleasure to see all of you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch this evening. Tonight is a really good night. Tonight's a fantastic night because I bring on yet another person who has lived this story and has just the most amazing things to talk about, just the most amazing things to share. And I think when we have a community of folks that have been fighting the good fight, been putting themselves into a better place, we come up with the best conversations, the best stories. And you're going to find that tonight is no exception to that. Before I bring on our guest, I want to say hello to all of you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. As soon as I get the graphic out of the way, there goes my graphic. On YouTube, we have Jamie. Jamie, who was on the show last week. Jamie, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Sarah over on Facebook says, "Hey, John, is this a time change or is this a special edition?" Sarah, this is the new time for the show. We're on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And VF Talks now airs on Friday nights at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Good to see you tonight, Sarah. And Matt, a co-host of said VF Talks, says hello. Hello, Matt. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I think it's time for us to introduce our guest. Our guest tonight is someone who has lived this story, who knows a lot about recovery, who has been sober for 17 months and has such an incredible story. And here is our guest tonight. It's Sean. Hey, Sean, how are you, Mr. Leary? How's everything going? And you're on mute. Of course you're on mute. As soon as I said that, there we go. Every time, Sean, every time I bring someone on, it's on mute, and it's like I have it set for it to go off. And how you doing, Sean? I'm sorry.
Practice. I wanted to get it out once, and then I'm doing well. Yeah.
I think by 2024, I'll figure this whole thing out with Ecamm. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah. By 2022, you'll be doing it in your sleep.
Yeah. Jamie's reminding me of something really important, that I mute all my guests. I do. Purely accidental. It's not a running gag or anything. It's just, I'm inept. And Sarah says, "Hi, Sean."
I find that the muting adds character.
Well, that's good. There's plenty of character there.
But yeah, it's an honor to be here. We've had many a great conversation, John, about how you inspire me a great deal. I mean, you got your famous whiteboard with, all the days that you're counting with the overeating, with the gambling, with the alcohol. I mean, like, just the fact that you're tackling all those things at once, I have a lot of respect for you. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. I'm inspired by you too. And the thing is, you have a very unique way of looking at this, a very unique way of going through your story and everything. I think the best thing we can do is talk about that, in the sense that, one, I can go through the questionnaire, but Sean, how old are you? Which is just a horrible question to ask. But how old are you, Sean?
I am 29.
29 years old.
I got sober at 28, and I remember at the time when I checked myself into rehab and I hit that final rock bottom, in my head I was like, wow, I'm getting this super late, like at 28. And then I remember going into treatment, and then people would be in their 50s and 60s like, shut the hell up. Like, I wish I got it at 28. You know what I mean? So everything's relative.
Everything is relative. I mean, I think that's a thing that, the one thing I've really grown to understand is, it doesn't necessarily stick the first time. There are times we go through this, and it may take many times for us to figure out, okay, this is not the right behavior, and I could see myself being in a very bad place. It takes a certain time, and sometimes it's not the right time.
Yeah, and some of us have to get beat up more than others. That's a phrase I've heard many a time, and it rings true. Like, some people, they say jails, institutions, and death. And for me, what I struggled with towards the end of my addiction was not so much the jails and institutions. It was withdrawals because my drug of choice was alcohol. So I was experiencing withdrawals and delirium tremens and the shakes in the morning. I would drink and do self tapers, like drink in the shower in the morning. I'd have a bad day at work and I would take my 30-minute lunch break, like just like race over to the bar, chug 2 beers, get back to work to get through the day. And like just so many unhealthy habits. And I had to be beat up quite a bit in the sense that I did a lot of self tapers and I'm lucky to be here at the end of the day. So
Sean, we're lucky that you are around because you've given so many people such motivation and such a cleaner and clearer perspective on what they need to do to basically not get beat up, whether physically or mentally or what have you.
yeah. And I also think, when you speak to the idea that, um, just talking about there's nothing wrong with, relapse can be a part of recovery. For me, I wasn't someone who went into treatment and then I'm out and then I'm back and then I'm out. For me, it was more, I just didn't admit that I had a problem until way, way, way down the line. And then I got to a place where I beat up myself so much that I wasn't intervened on. Like nobody was like, oh, you got a serious problem. It was me. I was having a hard time. I called a recovery center. I literally Googled rehabs near me. I live in the Boston area, found a place, was on the phone. It was a Friday during COVID. So I got my sober date is April 18th of 2020. So it was like kind of at the beginning of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Oops, I said the actual thing first.
Right.
I should have started with that, but my bad. Hopefully you don't get demonetized from that. But
Backstreet's back, all right.
the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Right.
Yeah, I got sober in April of 2020, and I was working a lot from home. I had a desk set up from home right downstairs here in this apartment, and I was as if I didn't have a Zoom meeting that day at work, I was drinking all day. I was chugging vodka cranberries, getting my stuff done. Highly functioning alcoholic, heavy air quotes, because it was high functioning until it wasn't. It was sustainable until it wasn't, until I crashed and burned and had to check myself into rehab. So I'm hoping that, knock on wood, I'd like this to be the first and last time I get sober. And I'm coming up on 17 months coming up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to make sure that this is the first and last time. And what that looks like is just putting my program first and working at it every single day because I can't stay sober on yesterday's recovery.
No, no, it's no guarantee, and we have to work the system every single day, every single minute. Sometimes, whether it is alcoholism or obesity or gambling or what have you, we have to fight all of that. Sarah had a question, and I think you alluded to it, but was there anything else that made you check yourself in?
It was mainly with the withdrawals. I was starting to scare myself with the withdrawals and the shakes and doing all those self tapers. So towards the end, especially, my level of drinking went up so much that I was like drinking Jack Daniels out of the bottle just to fall asleep.
Mm.
It got dark at the end. And I was starting to scare myself. And it's this weird dichotomy of scaring myself, like thinking, oh my God, like, what if I die in my sleep? And then the other side of me that was like really unhappy with my life, the reason I was drinking to escape reality, that in the back of my mind, this weird, like, dark thought just in the back of your brain that's like, maybe it would be good if I died in my sleep tonight. Like you have dark thoughts in the midst of at the height of your addiction. And now I can't even like picture having those thoughts because I'm so happy and I love life so much. I'm so
Mm.
full of life. I'm so fulfilled. I love meeting new people in the program and I have a sense of purpose. I love like just getting up in the morning and just showing up to life. But at the height of my addiction, especially towards the end, I was so miserable, like doing that cycle of, if I had 8 beers one night, I would like do the binge drinking and drinking every night thing. So 8 beers one night, and then it would be like, all right, like to make these withdrawals go away, I'll have 7 beers the next night, then six, five, four, three, two, one, and I would do those self tapers all the time, especially towards the end, and like that is miserable, living like that.
Yeah, that's not any sort of way to exist. I mean, and I think the one thing I'll say, whether it's a question of alcoholism or whatnot, is we come up with our own systems on what is the best way to tackle this and sort of self tapering and all of that. And it really becomes a question of what sort of mechanism is going to be something that is important for you. But I always say that you should always err on the side of talking to a doctor, talking to a therapist, outreach group, whatnot, to basically confirm that. Because we're no experts. We're, we're armchair experts, so to speak, but we're not experts. Far from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And what else was I going to say? Just about how, yeah, I was in a really dark place when I checked into treatment, and then I look at I don't even recognize that person
Mm.
versus who I am now, because I've taken all these bad habits, and I've replaced them with good ones. You know, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is throw on a meditation. There's one called On Awakening. It's got waves crashing on a beach and a
Mm-hmm.
lady talking like this. On Awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. And it was corny at first. It took me a while to get into it, and I was like, can you talk any slower, lady? And like, let's wrap it up. But eventually I got into it, and I listened to that every single day. On Awakening, I listened to On Awakening, this meditation. Then I supplement that with, there's one called Living Carefree by Deepak Chopra, which
Mm.
is more
Mm.
of regular meditation, not AA centric. But I listen to those two every single day, and it helps me so much, because then it just sets the tone for my day. Then if I'm sitting in traffic and somebody cuts me off, I'm not gonna be like, oh fuck you, like what the, like flip out over everything like I did in my addiction.
Very easy to do that up in Boston. Very, very easy to do that.
In
Also in the
Boston,
Philadelphia area too. Very
yeah,
easy to do that.
in Boston, driving is a sport.
That's right. Is
But
it?
yeah, it is funny. Like in my addiction, if I stubbed my toe, it would make me drink. If the wind blew on my arm weird, it would make me drink. Any excuse. If I was happy, sad, whatever. Whereas now, life continues to happen. I've talked to many people in recovery about this, like, and this isn't my phrase. Someone else, when I checked myself into rehab, had this phrase. They coined it. I can't take credit for it. But once you get sober, it's not like life is just all butterflies and blowjobs. You know, it's not all rainbows and whatever you want to
Rainbows
see.
and unicorns and yes,
Yeah,
all of that.
and NSYNC and Backstreet Boys.
That's right.
Um,
All of that.
but like life continues to happen. We were talking about this yesterday. We had a great conversation about how I'm dealing with some stuff right now where like a bunch of things happen all piled up all at once. Like I was working for 6.5 years in the video production industry, like in TV news behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got sober and the dust settled and the masks came back down, people were filtering back into the office. I had to make a tough decision to walk away from that industry because there was a lot of, it's a drinking culture, and people with whiskey stashes in their desks. You know, I've heard many a story of people in ad agencies and video production places. You know, their boss would come up to them at 9 a.m. with a beer in their hand saying, hey, can you log this footage? Or another friend of mine, they had two kegs around the corner. They'd be editing a video for an ad agency, and he'd be like, BRB, and take his solo cup, fill it up with beer, and he'd just be like editing a video. And all this stuff is just normal. So the dust settled, I got sober, and then I was like, I really should get out of this industry because I can't be around all this stuff, especially in early sobriety. So I made the tough decision, and I put in a 5-week notice with nothing lined up, which was risky, but I trusted in my higher power that everything was going to work out. And my gut was telling me that I wanted to work in recovery, that I wanted to help other people in recovery. And that's what I'm doing now. I work at a recovery center. My title is client care specialist, and I lead some of the groups. I help people with their step work in the big book, the 12 steps. I do a lot of things to help other people in recovery, and I have such a sense of purpose now, and I love my job. I love getting up in the morning. I love helping people in recovery, and I'm so happy where I am right now. I'm very grateful.
To be where you are right now, every moment truly is a gift, and these gifts are amazing. And the more that we work at these gifts, the better off life is. And it's not a guarantee that everything's going to run smoothly, but as long as we put ourselves in the ballpark, in the right place, we have a chance to do so many amazing things.
100%. Yeah.
Jamie says transformation of the mind is amazing in sobriety. Love hearing how everyone differs in those aspects too.
Mm. Definitely. And Jamie is someone that inspires me as well. You know, I've met you, I've met Jamie, I've met so many great people, Brad, LT and Felice from Recovering Addicts, Sober James, Merck, all these amazing people. And like, if there's one good thing that came out of, 2020 and the pandemic and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
there's only one good thing that came out of it. It's this. It's these online recovery communities springing up. Like, I literally have saved on my computer a bookmark of there's an AA group over Zoom, 24 hours, different host every hour. So it's like there's literally no excuse like for hitting an AA meeting these days. It's
Right.
literally at your fingertips. So that's like one of the big blessings of this time right now. We can stay connected even in our isolation.
Yeah, I think the way I referred to it before, and this might have been in our pre-interview yesterday or even earlier, is like it's an amazing time because, granted, we haven't seen anything this historically bad since the flu of the early 1900s, and yet this has given us a chance to bring so many people together to do so much for their community, for themselves, for their community, for the world, even. It's a really interesting time, a scary time, mind you, but a very interesting time to say the least.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
Jamie says, COVID has led me to all you amazing human beings.
Yeah.
To you too, Jamie. We love you.
Also, Jamie's interview last week was amazing. Everyone that's watching should go back and watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt says, slow talkers. Yeah, that wouldn't work for me.
Takes a second because she talks very slow and there's lots of pauses and stuff, but it's very calming once you get past that. The first few listens, I was like, all right, but now I'm getting into it.
I mean, it's the sort of thing where you really have to figure out exactly what the sort of right. We talk about visualization, right? What visualization best puts us in that sort of mind space, in that place that gets us out of basically the tangible, but basically a 35,000 foot view, a more spiritual sense, not even a theological spiritual sense, but a spiritual sense outside of our body, and just gives us a chance to reset. For
It's
for
also, oh, sorry.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
It's also, and I think we've hit on this before. Something that I really connect with in terms of, I don't know if you've seen Mod Sun's recovery story on YouTube. He's a rapper and singer, and he told his story at the world famous Jim Morrison room. It's like a famous hotel that has murals and tributes to Jim Morrison, and he used to go there and get high. And then he told his sobriety story recently, like went in there, set up a camera and told his sober story in there, and he was sober himself, and it was so powerful. And one of the things he was talking about was like all the people tattooed on him: Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, all these people, Jimi Hendrix, people that were his heroes. And this is the same for me, like, because I sing and make music, and I used to do stand-up comedy in college. Like, I have always gravitated towards being creative, and there's always that side of you that like wants to be those people. And those people, a lot of those people, let's be honest, are part of the 27 club. They died at age 27 or they experienced an overdose. Like, just look at the people on my wall. Like, my favorite artist right now, Juice World up there,
All right.
Prince, all these amazing art, Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, all my musical heroes died way before their time because they succumbed to drugs and alcohol. And it's sad, and then you kind of internalize that and you idolize those people and you glorify it. So that's a scary side of it too, with the creative.
It's amazing how many parallels there are between the musical mind and the comedic mind, and how many great musicians and comedians we've lost way too early in life.
Oh yeah, because Juice World, for example, I think he was 21, 22, so young, but the impact he made in such a short time, whether or not his music's your cup of tea, like I think he was an amazing artist, and like
Mm,
it's just sad. I would have loved to see like him do more stuff.
mm. It really is sad, but then they always say that the best ones, the best comedians, the best musicians leave this world way too soon, but their legacy will never be forgotten.
Yeah, and it's also in the same breath you can learn from them. You don't have to have that fate, because then there's people like Eminem who is sober and very vocal about it. That's what I love. That's my favorite when someone lives like, because Eminem, if you look into his story, he's had a very tumultuous life, and especially when the fame came and how the drugs and alcohol came with that, with success. When people get a bunch of money, a lot of that comes with it, and it's a party lifestyle. And now he's sober and very vocal about it, and I love when people are like that. I think that's great.
I think what I also love is other people of our recovery groups, and that of Marilyn joining us on YouTube. Says, "Hi everyone, it's good to see you all," and she waves and sends purple hearts all over. Sue had a question in the sense that, and by the way, she says it's good to see you, Sean. Did you ever get a new sponsor? I think that's where I left off with you.
I did. That was a while back. So this was like in my early recovery when I first got out of rehab. She's referring to my original sponsor was really adamant about having me go to in-person meetings, and I wasn't too comfortable with that just because of COVID, and I have asthma, and at the time I was an essential worker working at that TV news place. So that was a piece of it. We're kind of butted heads on that, where I didn't want to do in-person meetings. I just wanted to do Zoom AA meetings. And then the other piece of it was I wanted to work the steps, and he kept saying, just keep going to meetings. And I was like, no, I really, really would like to work the steps. I think that's the missing piece of my recovery. So it just didn't work out. But we were able to end on like a civil note. And I was just like, I really would like to work the steps. So my new sponsor that I have now has taken me through the steps. And that's been really been, and I think that's what's kept me sober, because the whole meeting makers make it. That's great. Meetings do help quite a bit. I attend a couple of AA meetings per week. It's good to stay on top of that. It's good to stay on top of my mental health through meditations. I just saw my therapist over Zoom today. There's all these things that kind of build the foundation of your mental health and self-care and all that good stuff. All those things are good. But for me, the steps are huge. Writing like 4-step, writing the resentments, and then going into amends and figuring out cleaning up your side of the street. The steps are the difference for me. And that's just, everyone's recovery is different. For me, the steps are the foundation of my recovery. I can't imagine having not worked them. I don't know if I would have stayed sober if I did.
It's hard to see and hard to basically imagine. I think our accountability is the most important thing, whether it is the steps or any other mechanism to stay accountable, right? Inventory is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Jamie says sometimes you gotta try a few times. Sometimes you gotta try a few times before you get a good fit. Nothing wrong with that.
True. Yeah. Definitely.
I think that's true in multiple regards too. I think it's true for therapy as well.
Yeah, and the therapy aspect of things. I think we were talking about this briefly yesterday. The fact that I never went to therapy until I got sober. I think there was always this little side of me that was just like, I don't go to therapy. I'm a man. Like, and you can quote me in that exact voice in the mirror alone. But once I got sober, that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Like, it's not just about staying sober. It's not just about going to meetings. You got to figure out like what's going on up here too. And therapy is a huge part of that. Just to unpack everything from your childhood to the reason why you were drinking. There's the whole idea of, people say, the ism of alcoholism. Before you pick up that first drink or that first drug, what's the ism? For me, the ism means not feeling baseline okay within myself. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. So what that looked like as a kid was acting and like acting out movies and TV shows and having a video camera in my hands all the time and making short films and skits with my friends on the weekend, putting stuff on YouTube, entering into my school's film festival. Then I ended up going to school for video production, filming things. I started doing stand-up comedy in college, got some paid gigs off campus, like in my senior year. I started making music. Like, I've always gravitated, like I've always been kind of like, look at me. Like, maybe if, people are entertained by me or if someone's laughing at me, they can't hate me. That's a great quote from Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian that is sober as well. And he was talking about in his story, if people are laughing at my jokes, they can't hate me. I love that quote. That's how I felt. And that was like, and that's before I picked up the first drink. The ism was already there of not, I'm not okay just being me. I need to do extra things for people to like me and wanting everyone to like me and people pleasing and at the expense of myself, you know? So,
When we think about our addictions, I think more times than not we realize that we have an addiction that is really a joint addiction, right? In my case, it's we've talked about it since episode one: overeating and the alcoholism and the compulsive gambling. With you, what was the other senses of outside the alcoholism? What other sort of things were basically a dopamine drip that was just a disaster?
I mean, there were some healthy ones. I would say that being creative was always, that's always been there for me as an outlet. And we spoke about this briefly yesterday, just the idea that I also felt guilty because I would hear other people's stories in treatment or just in recovery in general that they've had tough lives and that's why they turn to drugs and alcohol. And then like I look at myself and I had great parents that were very supportive. Like they all always like whether it was acting as a kid, they were like, yeah, go for it. Or when I had a video camera in my hands and I was filming and editing things and entering into my school's film festival, they were like, yeah, go for it. When I did stand up comedy in college, yeah, go for it. Music, go for it. Like they've always been so encouraging. So it's like, then I would feel guilty. Like, well, how did I become an alcoholic if I had such great parents and a great upbringing? It would make me feel guilty
Mm.
because I have so much to be grateful for. And it's like, wow, and I still messed up my life, you know? But then you come to realize there's nothing to be guilty about. Everyone has their own story. So
Yeah, I think, we can never guarantee what the circumstances may be, and we never know what sort of roadblocks will be put in our way, whether they're roadblocks that we put in front of ourselves, whether by way of, and I'm going to throw an internal family systems term for a second, by way of a firefighter, versus basically what we run into in the environments that we keep, people, places, things. No one can understand that from a long time ago. It just life happens, right? And it's how we manage that sort of thing that really becomes a question: is how do we manage that? How do we work through those sort of things?
I think another piece of it too is there's many schools of thought on this regarding the family like the I don't even know I can't find the word, but because
Heredity, family lineage, that sort of thing.
there you go, you're smarter than me. um, but my grandpa on my mom's side was an alcoholic,
Mm.
and I knew this, and I still picked up that first drink, and I still and it started out, addiction is very progressive. For me, I had my first drink at age 20. I was a late bloomer. And then I felt like I needed to make up for lost time. Like everyone else experienced all this stuff younger. So I got to like go extra hard. And then, like, so my addiction really didn't take hold until after college, after I moved out. And then I moved to Boston, got a job around here, and was on my own for the first time. Freedom, could do whatever I want, and I did. I did whatever I wanted. And I would say the height of my addiction, like where it was really bad, was like age 25 to 28.
Mm.
That's when I really, that 3 year span, I crashed and burned.
Mm.
So it was like progressive social drinking, but that you can still see the breadcrumb trail. Like
Right.
there were, it all led up to it. But the family side of things, I didn't pay attention to that. I knew that my grandfather had this disease, and I should have been more cognizant of that. But I didn't. I just kind of lived my life and ended up where I ended up. But I'm very grateful because I could have died from this. I could have been battling this for my whole life. You
Right.
know.
It could have been something that you'd be battling for a very long time, and it's a reality. We've seen so many people go through this, and some people, fortunately, a lot of our dear friends within these groups have done so well, but then there are people that have lapses and relapses, and we must be aware of that. We must remain cognizant of the fact that one day at a time, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. We must never lose sight of staying true to the program and never forgetting that and staying true to ourselves.
Yeah. And when that does happen, when someone does experience a lapse, I think it's also about not being judgmental and just being like, no, welcome back, get back up, come back to like, come back to the rooms, hit a meeting, like just dust yourself off and like not to coddle the person. Like, it's not like it's okay, but it's also, it happens. Relapse can be a part of recovery for people. I'm hoping that, God willing, that won't be the case for me, but I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I can only keep it in today.
Right.
So,
Jamie from before says, no need for guilt. We all have different paths and walks through our own fires.
well, thank you, Jamie.
It's very true. I mean, talking about lineage and the family tree for a second. I mean, we talked about it on the show briefly, but I could share for a couple minutes here in the sense that with my family, there is a long history of alcoholism. There is a long history of obesity and morbid obesity. There is a long history of compulsive gambling. You know, as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and it's something that I have to remain cognizant of. But at the end of the day, and something I told you yesterday, but something that I've also said on the show, no one is forcing me to hit the button on a video poker machine. No one is forcing me to step up to the bar and order a G&T or a Manhattan or whatnot. No one's forcing me to go eat a fancy dinner and then closet eat 3 hours later.
Mm,
That's on us. We own that, right?
exactly. And then that goes back to step one. I was talking to a few friends of mine about this today. Step one is the only step that you have to do 100%. You know, like, I have a problem and my life has become unmanageable. You can't half-ass that, because if you're like, maybe I have a problem, but I don't know, maybe I don't really think I do, and then you like just keep trying to go with the steps, you're building a house on sand. Like, you have to, step one, you got to be all in, not to, no pun intended with the poker
That's fine. Don't worry
gambling.
about that.
Yeah. But yeah, but I am very, very inspired by your story. Like the fact that you have multiple addictions, and you also, the way you tell a story and the way you frame it and just how you present things, I think is really inspiring.
Thank you.
You're really great at telling a story. You're really great at, when you have guests on, like it all flows really well. It's easy to talk to you about this type of stuff, and it all kind of comes together because although I don't have a gambling addiction myself, and I don't, or the overeating, we can still find common ground. It's about finding our similarities rather than our differences.
The mechanics are the same. They're
Yeah.
I used the term the other day. They're isomorphisms, right? The mechanics are the same. The philosophies and the sort of philosophical structures based on these firefighters, these bad things, are the same. Whether it
Yeah.
is a dopamine trip or any sort of biochemical dependence or what have you, um, it's the mechanics are the same. But then how we treat it, the general guidelines are the same too, but you have to admit that there's a problem, and there is no way out of that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Jamie says, I agree with Sean. JV, you're so great at what you do. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it. Your interview last week was phenomenal, Jamie, and again, thank you for doing the show. And Sean, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate that a great deal.
I want a copy of her lion drawing. That was fire.
Yeah, that was fire. And Sue says, agree, absolutely. I it's we talk about the idea of doing things to fill the gap, right? Whether that gap is boredom, whether that gap is emotional despair, whether that gap is a whole plentiful sort of ideas. We do things to fill the gap. We could do things that fill the gap in a beneficial way, in a benevolent sort of way, or we could fill the gap with a malevolent sort of gap filler, and that we'd call a firefighter versus what we call a manager.
Mm.
Moving towards a world where we're basically filling these gaps, or basically living our lives full of healthy behavior, is such an important transition, such an important journey for us to take. And it's something we teach so many, because when we have those moments where we feel high on life hate to use that term, but it's true. When we feel really great about life, that sort of feeling can be really, really inspirational, very infectious, if you will.
Yeah, and things go in waves too. There is like a honeymoon phase, if you want to call it, in recovery, and it kind of goes in waves. That's why there's a reason that the term pink cloud exists. People will experience a pink cloud when they first get sober. First 3 months, it's very common for people to be like, "Why didn't I do this a long time ago?" And like, I'm getting in shape and all these things. Like your life starts getting better by getting sober, but then you have to keep going, and that honeymoon phase will only last so long, and then you have to start putting in work to maintain that. And a lot of people don't want to put in that work, because then like life just hits you, and you got to keep going. And it comes and goes in waves, because we were talking about just that idea, that theme of life continues to happen when you get sober. It's not butterflies and rainbows just the second you get sober. For me personally, recently, obviously, I walked away from that video production job. Then I got a job at a sober house, helping people in addiction and stuff like that, at the place I got sober at, actually. Not at the recovery center, but at one of the sober houses, working there. And I absolutely loved that job, loved it. And then out of nowhere, just like that, they were like, "Hey, we're closing down all of the sober houses and you won't have a job in a week. Sorry." And it was a blind side, but I stayed sober. I dealt with it. I handled it. And then I was able to land another job at another recovery center. I'm doing well. I just started that I was at the sober house for about a month, and I loved it. And then all of a sudden that carpet was ripped from under me, and I didn't have a job anymore. And I could have fallen to pieces based on that. But I decided to be strong and take it a day at a time, and trust in my higher power that it was all going to work out. And it did. And then another thing that, and when it rains, it pours, then and I was at a certain point, you have to laugh at, like, when a bunch of things happen all at once. Like our family dog, we have a golden retriever that was 11 years old, and like out of nowhere, I saw her on a Saturday like 2 weeks ago. My parents came over, brought our dog. It was a great time. We like got some food. We were watching Gotham on Netflix. Her name was Molly. Like right by my by my feet, I was petting her. And then they went home, and then that night, she got rushed to the hospital, and it was like she was gone just like that. And it was, whoa. And we found that out on Sunday, and then that Monday, the next day, I was starting my first day at that new job at the recovery center. So it was like I was so happy to be starting this job. It was so positive, and then like we lost our family dog, and like I was really obviously very sad over that. Like that happened, and at the same time, a neighbor of mine accidentally backed into my car hard. And like left a note. So then I had to like go to a body shop. That took like a week and a half to get fixed. They had to replace my door. I was in a rental car for the first like 2 weeks of this new job. So it's like you can't make this stuff up. But it's like, and that goes into, we were talking about this yesterday. In my addiction, I was a chronic complainer. I complained about everything, and I would drink over everything, and I was miserable. Like always complaining about things but not doing anything about it. Whereas now, all that shit happened all in a row, but I just dealt with it, and I took it a day at a time, and life happens, and I stayed sober, and like I had to just say to myself, yeah, toughen up, just deal with it. Like it's going to be okay. Tomorrow is another day.
Tomorrow is another day
I
for
could have
sure.
drunk over it, but I didn't. So
Jamie says, Sean, you're a good example of always finding the positive in situations. You're really good at it.
thank you.
And Marilyn says, JV is an amazing teacher and educator. Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that.
Definitely.
Um, it's amazing how we talk about how many of us had that tick about being constant complainers. And I think about the moments where I was morbidly obese, and massively morbidly obese, and drinking and gambling. And the one thing I'll always say, Sean, was there was no satiation. There was no moment where I was just happy. I had to go do the next best thing, the next greatest thing, and all of that. There was nothing satisfying those urges, nothing that was satisfying those firefighters.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny you say that too, because I was recently rewatching that Mod Sun sober story that he did in that Jim Morrison room. I was actually watching it with some of the guys in the sober house of the place I'm working at now,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's an amazing story. I love that story. And he was talking about in the height of his addiction, he would do like a bump of coke, and it was just like 15 minutes, the world's the shit, and then like and then I'm back down again. Then I gotta do another like hit, world's the shit. 15 minutes, world's the shit. Like there's no, but you can't maintain that. And with my drug of choice, alcohol, you have to keep going. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't just have a couple of drinks because then there's the come down, and the world's not the shit anymore, so to speak. You got to keep going and going and going until you pass out, basically, and then do it all over again. That's a miserable existence.
Horrible,
I
absolutely
don't want.
horrible. It's why one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight, eight becomes 16. It's not linear. It doubles and it doubles and it doubles, almost like in a Fibonacci sort of sequence. Not to go all mathematical for a second, but it really is a sickness, and there is no satiation through a linear means to get that fixed. And when
I
that is the sort of paradigm, then how do we fix that? Not by rational means. We have to get rid of it altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, go ahead.
But when you said Fibonacci sequence, that just made me think of school. I hope LT's watching. But yeah.
Sarah says complaining is a victim mindset. It certainly is.
Yep. Whereas now, it's a whole mindset change with recovery. It's not just about putting down the drink and drugs. It's an entire mindset change with the meditation, with therapy, going to meetings, a sense of community, because connection is the opposite, or addiction is, what is it? Connection is the opposite of addiction. I knew I'd get it one day.
You got it.
Um, but yeah, it's so true. Like I could choose to complain about everything, or I could choose to be positive and like put a positive spin on. I can put a positive spin on anything. It's I there's a line with that too. It's okay to be upset sometimes. It's okay to be a human being. Like things are going to happen, and you're, whatever. But at the same time, I am so much more positive now, and I look at things, and it's much healthier where I'm at now.
You're definitely staying strong, and that will keep you going without question.
Hmm.
Jamie says, is Fibonacci an Italian meal? Well, if you like ones, twos, threes, fives, eights, 13s, 21s, 34s, yeah, that sort of
Yeah, that's a chef fingers
thing.
gif.
Yay. Yay. It's a Fibonacci. Jamie says, mind over matter.
Yep.
I guess the other thing that remains to the front of my mind as far as drinking, I know it certainly was the case with my overeating, is that of hiding it, closet drinking, closet eating, that sort of thing.
Yep. That was 100% my story, because, and I've spoken about this many times, and my entire sober story is actually on both of my YouTube channels. There's like Sean Leary Music, where I have a lot of my music and stuff like that on there, and then I have a new channel called The Sober Singer, and the idea is I'm going to start doing live streams hopefully soon, where I would basically be doing covers and original songs, and then in between songs I want to talk recovery, and have it be that. And I've been really inspired by yourself, Sober James, LT, Recovering Addict, all these great people doing live streams that I definitely am interested in getting into that. But both of my sober stories are, my sober stories on both of my channels on YouTube. And yeah.
It's what I think is very interesting about the people we've grown close to through the recovery circles is we all have our own different spins on it, right? You have James's spin, which has taken a turn and a turn, and they're decent turns, right? Obviously, it's a reality that works in his recovery, which he has a lot of people following him, which is fantastic. I still follow James to this day. Same thing with
Yeah.
LT, in the sense that he has gravitated to a mind of physical fitness in addition to sobriety, etc. In my case, I've taken this sort of dichotomy of talking about recovery, talking about mental health, talking about all these things, but then also showing that there is a humanistic perspective as well, and doing a conversational program on Friday where we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to see all these sort of formulas, these sort of recipes. What I gotta say about you, Sean, though, is the idea that you're putting the sort of singing and that sort of music in addition to the that's a phenomenal idea, an incredible idea.
Yeah, and I think above everything, I just think it would be fun. You know, I think these days I kind of just trust my gut, and my gut was telling me get out of the video production industry. There's drinking everywhere. It's toxic. You hate your job. You're miserable. You're drinking all the time. Um, and my heart was telling me, I really think that I'm supposed to be helping people in recovery right now. And now, fast forward to now, that's exactly what I'm doing. Talk about a gratitude list. That could be the start and the end of the list. I'm working in recovery, helping other addicts and alcoholics, kind of passing on what I've learned. I mean, that right there, I'm so grateful just for that. And then if I kept going down the list, I got a roof over my head. I
Mm-hmm.
got food in my fridge. You know, I love creating. I love singing. I love producing music. There's all these things that I'm thankful for.
Very much so. I think the one thing I kind of I made mention of this on the show on Tuesday, but this project has been very much important for me in the sense that it's a reminder for why I'm doing what I'm doing and the change in my life that this has become, but also seeing how this has so positively affected people as far as their recovery, their sobriety, their enter thing here. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely keeps me coming back for sure.
And that's the thing too, is you never know who could be watching a stream of yours that needs it in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, you never know, by sharing your story, that could be the catalyst that starts someone's recovery journey. Like for me, when I hit that final rock bottom in April of 2020, there were two recovery stories on YouTube that gave me the final push to check myself into rehab. And those two were this guy, Captain Narkill, on YouTube. He does
Mm-hmm.
like vlogs and stuff like that. And his drug of choice was alcohol. He told he has 3 years now, but it was his 1 year story that I saw on YouTube. He's done it for every year. But that 1 year story was really compelling, and it was very good the way he put it together, and I related to it a lot from the alcohol side of it. And then the second one was, of course, that Mod Sun one in the Jim Morrison room. When I saw those two stories, I was already kind of going downhill, and I was already thinking about checking into rehab. I think I actually literally called a place, and then I chickened out before I saw those two stories. And then when I saw those two stories, that was the final push that got me to pick up the phone, Google rehabs near me, actually get on the phone, book a consultation, and then a couple days later, I was in treatment. So, and they probably have no idea who I am, or that like me seeing their stories inadvertently got me to like change my life. And so you never know who could have watched. Someone could have seen my story on YouTube. They could see a stream of yours. They could see James's story on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, LT, whoever. You never know who you could be helping just by telling your story and sharing.
Jamie says LT and Felice are so amazing. I agree. I think James is amazing too. I'll tell you a quick story about James. The way I found out about Sober James was him just playing frisbee with his dog, listening to an AA testimony of Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, that was a good. I love those. Yeah, those were great. Where it had the voiceover, and then yeah, those were,
Incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful.
yeah, really great stuff.
Jamie says, Sean, you're talented in musical regards, so your stream will be fun.
Thank you.
Marilyn says, if it's not fun, you shouldn't do it. It's not a job if you enjoy it.
Ew, 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 ew.
Okay.
Sure.
Triangle. There you go. There's
Nice.
it. Jamie also says, yeah, Sober James is where it all started for me. I started with his tapes too. They were awesome. Very much so.
Yep.
And I think, honestly, even if you're not battling addiction per se, and you want to see that sort of wonderful sort of melange of a guy enjoying playing a game of frisbee with his dog while listening to such a brilliant mind in the case of Anthony Hopkins in the background. It's nothing better. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah. And I really love kind of transitioning to the recovering addict community. I
Mm-hmm.
love all the people I've met in there and like the Discord server. I mean, so many great friends I've made in there. And it's such a sense of community. And also, as you may know, I've started doing some videos for them, some content for them. So I'll basically take their Sunday stream and then I'll take like a topic from it and kind of make it into a highlight video.
Mm.
Like a 3 to 5 minute video that they can post on their channel, and that's really helped me too. Like because it's combining all the passions. It's my new passion for recovery. It's the fact that I went to school for video production and editing, so I have that skill set. So it's like why not combine those things? So
It's such an important technique. And truth be told, I'm guilty of this. And cut to Maine for a second, just to share an admission. I should be editing these things. I know it's something that's on my list, and if it wasn't for 500 other things going on, I would probably be editing these things. But if you can truncate the actual live episodes to a series of snippets, whether there are 4 or 5 episodes, and doing that sort of thing, it produces so much value for the channel. And what you're doing there, Sean, is amazing.
thank you, thank you.
Speaking of amazing, let's talk about Further from God.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, so Further from God is my first original song that I put out. I have 2 so far, and then I have a third that I'm recording as we speak. Well, actually, not in this very moment, literally, but one that I'm
That would
working
be
on.
incredible. If you're editing and writing that right where we're doing it, oh my God, that's
If I was that good at multitasking, forget about it. But, no, but so Further from God was a song that I wrote in 2019 after a pretty rough breakup in the midst of my addiction. And that was the other thing I think I lost my train of thought before when we were talking about hiding the addiction. Because in 2018, that was towards the end of my addiction, I was living with my ex-girlfriend in an apartment close to Boston. And this was towards the end of my addiction when it was really bad. And when we talk about hiding it, I mean, I was strategic. I would hide bottles. I would take out the recycling multiple times a day to hide how much I was drinking. It got bad towards the end. And excuse me. Um, and then basically what happened was we were starting to there was a disconnect. We were starting to grow apart, and I wasn't really paying attention to that. I just was holding on to this relationship, even though we weren't right for each other. And even though my drinking was going off the rails, I didn't pay attention to it. And then I came home from work one day, and unfortunately, she had everything packed. Her whole car was packed. She was like crying on the couch, and she was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I took it, that was the end of 2018. And I say this in my sober story on YouTube. I literally don't remember the year 2019. Like, I just was like, F it. Like 2019, my motto was get through the day. So, all these bad habits, all these bad coping skills of having a bad day at work, run down to the bar, chug 2 beers, get back just to get through the day, the rest of this day. So 2019 was really dark. And with the hiding bottles and hiding my addiction, and like nobody really knew about it. There were a couple of rumblings here and there where people would be like, are you sure you want one more? Like little comments, but I was so good at hiding it that a lot of people, when I checked myself into rehab finally in April of 2020, they were like, what? You have an addiction? Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, literally so many people didn't know. But basically going back to Further from God. So I wrote that right after that breakup in 2019, and then I just sat on it, and I just never recorded it. And then I finally did some vocals, like at the beginning of 2020, but I recorded them drunk. And that's the other thing too, in your addiction, especially if you're like a creative, I used to think that I gave a better performance drunk. which is such a fallacy.
Mm.
And then you listen back to it sober and you sound like trash. So I've recorded a lot of those vocals for Further From God drunk. And then I checked myself into rehab in April of 2020, got out, was sober. And then I listened back to it and I was like, I don't like the way that sounds. So I'm going to scrap all those vocals and I'm going to re-record the whole thing sober. And I did. And I recorded it and I put it out I think I released it in June of 2020. And that was my first original song. And I procrastinated on it for so long in my addiction. And then in my recovery, I had the focus to finally put it out. And I'm very proud of it. And it's a song that means a lot to me.
There are many folks that are very proud of that song. I am included in that list. But Jamie says, Further From God is great. I still remember when James played it in one of his live streams.
Yeah.
Well, it is an honor to say that James's live stream is not the only place that is going to be played, because we're going to play it right now, actually. So hopefully the video and the audio work here. And if it doesn't, well, that wouldn't be new for this show, would it? But I think we're at a place. So here we go. I'm, of course, going to hit the audio and then I'm going to hit the video. But this is Sean Leary, and this is Further From God.
Lately I feel so empty. Why? Maybe the heart needs more than time. Keeping my demons deep inside. Vices on vices help me hide. Sometimes a house is not a home. Sometimes a house is not a home. Why can't we change further from God? I can't be seen further from God. This shit cuts deep. Look at my scar. I just became further from God. Lately I feel like someone else, 'cause I'm too afraid to be myself. Searching for fine and time will tell. I'm in a self-inflicted hell. Sometimes a house is not a home. Sometimes a house is not a home. Why can't we change further from God? I can't be seen further from God. This shit cuts deep. Look at my scar. I just became further from God. I've been living in the past of what was then, so I'm letting go to finally start again. In the mirror I can finally make amends. Every memory made is worth it in the end. Why can't we change further from God? I can't be seen further from God. in my scar. I just became further from God.
That was absolutely one of the best songs I've listened to as part of this journey. And I gotta tell you, it is I still can't get over how great that song is. I really can't.
Thank you so much. And it's one that means a lot to me because you can kind of see. I didn't want it to be too on the nose when it comes to recovery, but you can see little inklings of it, like in the final bridge, like making amends in the mirror, like reference to amends. Like
Hmm.
I wanted it to be tasteful, but not, like not like I'm in recovery. Get it? Like it was more just like about my journey. Like, am I right? Like, um, but it was more just kind of just about my journey, and it's about in some senses my recovery, in some senses mental health, putting yourself first, feeling like you're enough. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to unpack with it, and I'm very proud of it. Um, so yeah,
There's a lot to be proud of. It was an incredible song, an incredible video, and I just thank you. Thank you for putting that together. It is absolutely
thank you
amazing.
for playing it. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think Jamie put it best when she said fire, fire.
Thank you.
And Austin says, "Hey JV and Sean. Hey Austin, how are you?" I guess couple more things I wanted to ask you real quick. So you mentioned more music coming. I think that's really exciting. I mean, "Further from God" is such a great song, but you are so talented from that regard and that respect. What sort of plans do you have as far as the future music that you're putting out?
Well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. You're too kind. And so my second song is out currently. It's called "Fix My Head." That's also, you can find that at just like Sean Leary Music on YouTube and all that good stuff. And so "Fix My Head" is more of like a pop punk type thing, like Blink 182, or how Machine Gun Kelly is kind of bringing back that pop punk sound lately. So it's that type of sound to it. I wanted to do something different. So that there's that. "Fix My Head" is out. There's a lyric video for that as well. And then I have one that I'm working on at the moment that I'm hoping to have out in the next couple of months. And I'm just kind of taking my time with it. And that one is more just straight ahead, like poppy, but still dark. So yeah.
Couple comments while you're talking about that, and again, I'm just excited about the work that you're putting out there right now. But Marilyn said that was beautiful, and that of "Further from God," and she says that you are very talented, and I couldn't agree more. You are absolutely talented, sir.
Thank you. I
Which
try.
actually makes me want to ask you the next question, because I know you had a history with this, but any plans to go back into comedy?
I have a couple of friends that keep trying to get me to do stand up again. I think I will eventually. I'll probably get that itch again at some point to do stand up because I did it. I basically, the way I've approached a lot of things in my life is I just kind of go for it. So in freshman year of college, I was like, I want to try stand up. And I just kind of did it. And I sucked at first. Like literally my first set, I had my jokes on a piece of paper and was like this, like, so airplane food, am I right? And like couldn't remember any of my jokes. It was bad. But then I eventually got better. And by my senior year, I was actually getting a couple of paid gigs off campus. And my junior year, I did like, there was like a stand up. I went to Ithaca College in New York,
Mm.
upstate New York, right next to Cornell. It's basically Cornell for dumb people like me. Um, but I just always think of Andy from The Office, like, dude, did I tell you that I go to Cornell?
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I basically freshman year in college, I was like, I want to try stand up as a challenge to myself, and I just started doing it. And I came in second in like a competition junior year. I got some paid gigs senior year, and then after that, I kind of just didn't stick with it.
Mm.
And I kind of lost the passion for it, and then that passion kind of transferred to music. where like that's where I really have a lot of passion now. So
It's incredibly talented person. I gotta say that there are some folks that are viewers and also co-hosts of this show that have something to do with comedy and are very good at it. And if you ever want to pick their brain, they are more than happy to talk to you because
yeah, one of those things where I just love it in general. I love there's certain things that I'm so passionate about, and those things fell by the wayside in my addiction, in my drinking. All those things got pushed to the side just so I could feel okay for a couple of minutes. You know what I mean? And now I'm all those things that I had, all those passions. I'm getting those back again in my sobriety. Like I just love watching stand up. You know, people like Bill Burr, Norm Macdonald, Bobby Theo Vaughn,
Bill
so
Burr,
many.
man.
There's so many great comedians, and I just love it. And I love movies. I was always kind of that nerdy kid in school. That I mean, that's the reason I went to college for video production because I was that dorky kid that would get like the special edition of The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger and watch all the behind the scenes. How'd they get this angle? How'd they cut this together? What lens did they use for this part? And like they shot this part in IMAX and like trying to film things myself in my backyard. Like to like how did they do this? Like I've just always had a very curious mind when it comes to that. And I think it's a shame in my addiction with my drinking, I deadened a lot of that stuff, a lot of that curiosity and a lot of that passion. I just deadened that with my drinking.
Mm.
Like the light just left my eyes, and now I have it back and more.
It's such an amazing feeling to have back. Is to get that sort of creative sort of space, that sort of like the skies have opened, and not in a bad way. Like you could see the sun and you could see the power of it, and like, oh man.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Matt is quick to say comedy is hard. It looks easy. It's not. Very hard.
Yeah.
And then Jamie says Cornell. Never heard of it. Haha.
Yeah.
Jamie also says that's the best thing about sobriety is getting our drive and passions back.
Oh yeah. 100%. And the sky's the limit with that, you know, like, and you could find new passions that you have that you never thought you had, you know. Maybe you love drawing. Maybe you take that up. Maybe I don't know, like sports, getting into shape. A lot of people that get sober, they get like they become Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Look at Alan from Sober Powerlifting. Look at him. He's in
Yeah. Oh my
competitions.
God. I can't believe how much he's lifting.
Oh my God, that dude's a beast.
I mean, he every time he's posting something, that number keeps on growing and growing and growing. What is he up to? Like 450, 500, 550 now?
He's yeah.
Man. Man,
Yeah,
man,
he's
man.
lifting some big time weight. Yeah, and yeah, a quick shameless plug as hashtag shameless plug as you
Hashtag
would put it.
shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Sober powerlifting. Our
Mm-hmm.
buddy Alan, go check him out on YouTube.
Jamie's absolutely right there.
Yep.
Mother loving beast. That
Yeah,
Alan.
and that's what I love about this community is we all support each other and we all are rooting for each other, and it's like it's all love. You know,
Yeah.
as corny as that sounds.
That's the best kind of love there is. I really think we are people that on the most part we've never met each other and yet we feel really connected, and if there's something that transcends multiple spaces in that, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
say this though, when you actually meet these people, it goes 10, 20 levels above that. Like
Yeah.
I saw Matt a few times now. Matt and I, really great friend. I'm really honored to have his friendship. Same thing with Sarah. I saw her a week and change ago, and like spent 2 3 hours with her. It was like we've spent years together. She's a phenomenal person, Sarah Steele, and definitely go see her artistry. SarahSteele.com.
Hmm.
SarahSteele.com. She's an incredible artist. So we talk
Nice.
about sharing the love and whatnot. She's incredible. So throw that out there too.
Nice.
Anything else you want to talk about or plug or anything?
I think we had a really good. I mean, we always have a good discussion, John, even off camera. You know, like anytime that we're hanging out in the recovering addict Discord, or we're like talking on Zoom. It always flows really well, and there's a mutual respect there. Like I have a lot of respect for your story, your journey, and I think we can inspire each other, and we can inspire others, and hopefully anyone that watched this all the way through got something out of this. Even if you're not in recovery, you may hopefully you got something out of it, just in general. Because this applies to life too, like just all these tools that you can put in place with meditation, with self care. And the second you say self care, it's like, all right, like Sean's like a basic bitch, but like, yeah, I'm a white girl on Instagram. Like,
Oh, stop it.
have you seen that Bill Burr, or not Bill Burr, Bo Burnham, like
Yeah.
white woman's Instagram, like, yeah. But anyway, but like self care, mental health, going to therapy, all this stuff adds up, and it makes life better because you're getting to the root of everything, and just being more positive, and then you can take that out into the world and try to spread that positivity and help others and be a good person. And I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still F up, but it's about,
Perfection is overrated, my friend.
yeah,
That's
progress, not perfection. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But all you can do is your best, and just try to be a good person and be a better person than you were yesterday. That's what I strive for. So,
That's the one thing you got to keep in mind, Sean, is the fact that us live streamers here, we just go out there and do it, and if it sticks, it sticks. But we do it live, and there might be technical errors left and right and sideways, and we might have problems with audio, we might have problems with video, we might have a troll or two. It's good times. It's good times, and it makes it human. We're human beings, right?
I also think trolls build character. I've,
Absolutely.
in my experience, in my humble opinion. So,
I agree. I absolutely agree.
yeah.
I will say this: the moment that you have your regular live stream, I will be rooting you on. I will be making that appointment television or appointment streaming or whatever you call it these days in 2021.
Set that reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell. Buy him a coffee. You know what? Buy me a coffee as well. Buy me a coffee while you're at it.
But no, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, if anyone does want to check out my stuff, it's just Sean Leary Music on YouTube. That's where most of my music and lyric videos, and a lot of cover songs on there. A lot of mixing the comedy and the music, where I'll make like a comedic type song or a parody or something like that. And then also on YouTube, it's relatively new, but it's called The Sober Singer, and I have my full sobriety story on there. It's about an hour. And then I think the only other video I have up there so far is me singing the high note in the bridge of "Want to Want Me" by Jason Derulo. So if you want to see that, it's like 5 seconds. I'm gonna put up some more videos like that, where it's like little short clips, just having fun. Maybe I'll rap a Drake verse here and there.
That you're a very creative guy, and I'll say this: it is an honor, and I feel really lucky that our paths have crossed, and I got to know you, and getting to know you, and to watch this evolve and grow is incredible.
Yeah, you as well. The feeling's mutual. I have a lot of respect for you, John, and this has been great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you. You have a great night. Take care of yourself, and I will talk to you soon.
You as well.
Sean Leary, ladies and gentlemen, the sober singer, an incredibly talented man. And you ever want to listen to a song that talks about our journey and that of sobriety and overcoming these sort of things? Further from God is an amazing song, and I hope it resonated to you as much as it resonated to many of us in here. Some comments real quick before we talk about what's next on the Venture Forward and VF Talks. Jamie says, I got to check Sarah's stuff out. Sarah's stuff. I love hearing from her on your streams. And Sarah says, thanks for the plug, JV. Right back at you, Sarah. Love you. Jamie says, amazing stream tonight. Awesome job, Sean and JV. And then we're starting to talk about live streaming and the wonderful nuances and mistakes, but also creativity that comes out of it. Jamie reminds us of F it, we'll do it live. The old Bill O'Reilly Inside Edition thing. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. So that said, tomorrow night we will have VF Talks at the new time of 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And then next week, on Tuesday, we're going to talk about when it is time to make a change. And I want to talk about the moments in this journey that resonated to me about when I had to make a change. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. I definitely am sitting at the edge of my seat talking about this, or going to talk about it, but I think there's a lot to be said about it too. And a lot of those themes were covered tonight in the conversation with Sean, as much as the conversation with Jamie a week or two ago as well. But until next time, I'll say the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward and VF Talks. If I can find a graphic, that'd be great. Because everything is high. See, told you, technical errors all over the place. Discuss some other yourselves. There we go. I changed a few things around and you think I find them? No. But until next time, I'm going to say the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward and VF Talks. And there's the music too. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. We'll see you tomorrow night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific for VF Talks. Have a great night. Fly be free.